What's going on, America? This is Kevin from Kevin's Corner. Welcome to the show where I try to make sense out of nonsense. And did y'all hear Elizabeth Warren? She proposed an amendment to the defense funding bill that says that before we give any funding to the military, all of these military bases named after, old Confederate slave generals in the South should be renamed. All of these military bases should be renamed. And I'm sure that you've also noticed this big push, this big move for all of these angry, upset Black Lives Matter, Antifa, and other angry citizens that feel that all of these statues and everything in our society that for whatever reason has a historical past tied to racism and might even remind us of racism as we walk about our everyday life, walking past statues like this. All of a sudden you see them and you're mad. You're like, oh man, this just took me back to a time in history where I didn't live in, but nonetheless, I could imagine how it was. And it makes me mad. And by tearing down all these things, Black people are better off. Yeah, we're going to atone for all of the atrocities of America. By tearing down these statues, it's going to put more money in our pocket, make our schools better. It's going to give us more economic stability, all the things that Black people really need. But by tearing down statues and anything that even resembles a little bit of racism is where we should start, because it's going to make a difference. And you know what? For once, I agree with Elizabeth Warren. Let's go do it. Let's get to it. Let's go ahead into society and find every single thing that represents racism in the past, anything that's connected or tied to racism. Let's go get it, because it's going to make a difference. But, before we do that, why don't we go back through history and see some of the major things that maybe Elizabeth Warren and others totally just overlook for some reason, because it ain't on their agenda. Now, I have to give it to them. This right here is genius by the Democratic Party and the liberal media and all of them to be able to inflame and make all these people upset and run around looking at statues and things like that they think is going to make us better as a people, tearing down all this stuff and not once stop to think, who are these statues representing? Where'd they come from? What political party that all of these statues and heroes from the South came from? They were all produced by who? The Democratic Party. Oh, Elizabeth didn't mention that? She didn't bring, okay, I figured she didn't. Because see, what it appears to me is that people are dumb enough to do the work of the Democratic Party, which is go out there, run around like a chicken with his head cut off and attack all of our evidence, cover that mess up, sweep all of the stuff that the Democratic Party has contributed in our society and in our history as it pertains to racism, slavery. Well, let me think about this. Okay, so it was the Democratic Party responsible for slavery, right? Oh, snap. She didn't tell y'all that? Okay. It was the Democratic Party came up with the Jim Crow laws too, right? Oh, my bad. Willie Lynch and all them. It don't even matter. It don't even matter. They got us simply redirecting our attention towards these statues. See, it's funny how they don't include themselves in all of this destruction and racism in our society. What else? Let me see. I think it was the Democratic Party that produced Robert Byrd. Yeah, the Grand Poobah, Ku Klux Klan, who Hillary loved, who was mentored. He mentored Hillary. And for some reason, all these radicals running around tearing up stuff, they're not going to say, hey, why don't we get Robert Byrd's name totally erased from the Democratic Party? Why don't we, all of his contributions to society, tear that mess down? Matter of fact, why aren't we telling the whole Democratic Party to denounce who they all praised? Somehow he magically repented, even though he never came out and said that him being a part of the Ku Klux Klan was wrong. He just, I guess, stopped associating with him, and therefore they just assumed that was his atonement. Yeah, but they still deem him as a great leader in the Democratic Party. Yeah, and Hillary loved him. Oh wait, speaking of Hillary, why don't we go ahead and erase her out of the history of the Democratic Party? Why are we voting for her? You know who she supported and loved? Margaret Sanger. Now all of this systemic racism that's running around, you think it's systemic racism with the cops killing Black people? Man, you ain't seen nothing yet. Margaret Sanger started the Planned Parenthood for the sole purpose of killing black people. And Hillary Clinton just loved Margaret Sanger. She was one of the most idolized people from Hillary Clinton. Now, since Margaret Sanger is historically known to be a racist and wanted to perpetrate the genocide of all black people, and the product that came from this woman was Planned Parenthood. That's all around the United States, and all of these black neighborhoods still killing millions of black babies. Why don't they run and tear that stuff down? Why isn't Elizabeth Warren said, you know what, because that reminds me of racism, and it reminds me of segregation and genocide towards black people. We should also look at those Planned Parenthoods, and every time you ride past one, it should remind you of racism. And you should get out your car and start tearing down the Planned Parenthood. Why isn't she saying that? I mean, this is the best mind screw I've ever seen. The Democrats, I got to give it to them. They slick, man. They're saying, you know what? We left all this evidence in our history that we're not proud of. And we trying to, make y'all think we ain't had nothing to do with that. And so what we'd like to do is just start all over by having y'all get mad enough to go out and tear down stuff that ain't going to make a difference in your life. Probably didn't even know about the history of it until somebody told you to get mad at that statue, get mad at this and this and that. Yeah, go tear it up. Y'all do our work, erase the history without even stopping once to look at how we contributed to all of this. Now, let me think. Let me see, who else did they produce? Oh, the KKK. Yeah, Democrats. That was all them. Wait, let me see. If I'm forgetting anything. Oh, they were the party who fought against all of the civil rights movements, bills that were proposed. They kicked all that mess out. And then, when they realized they couldn't stop the momentum, well, I think it was Lyndon B. Johnson, the racist Democrat president, who said, you know what? I'm going to tell them one thing, but I'm going to tell my friends. Come on, everybody gather in. Hey, look, since we can't stop the movement and eventually they're going to have rights to vote and all this, we see where it's going. So let's just go ahead and strategically get ahead of this thing. So if we gonna have black people in our society independent and living and equal rights and stuff, we got to control that mess. We got to use it to our benefit. So you know what we gonna do? We gonna have them bleeps voting for us for the next 200 years. Now, did that sound like he just signed that because he loved black people? Probably not. So why isn't he erased? Why don't we go in and take all his pictures down, rip him out of the history books, all of that? Oh, y'all didn't know about that? Y'all chasing the stuff that the Democrats are saying, go get it. Like Elizabeth Warren here, who left herself and her whole party out of it. Oh, what else? Oh, yeah, I know. They're fighting against this systemic racism. Remember? Yeah, because they want you running around looking up under rocks and everything for this mysterious systemic racism. Well, that's odd, because when you look at the traps that all of the black neighborhoods, inner city people are in, let me think about that. So when Lyndon B. Johnson signed that, and then they started flooding the black neighborhoods and community with all types of social programs and incentives to break up the black homes, I mean, how did that work out? So once the fathers were broken up and they got us hooked on all of that stuff, and they start giving us treats and making us become codependent on the system, and all we had to do was just simply vote for them. And then it led to our schools starting to fail, all of that stuff. Now, I wonder, how are these schools failing in all of these black neighborhoods ran by who? Democrat leaders. I wonder how they failing, because when our kids can't pass reading and math, they have a hard time understanding what's going on around them, and they're easier to be controlled. That's what that looks like to me. And to make sure that happens, the Democrats who support school unions and not school choice, they make sure that these kids can't break out of that area and go and get an education from a better school by simply setting it up based off of the housing value. I mean, hey, look, it's not our fault that you guys can't go to better schools. I mean, look at your housing district. I mean, the value of these houses, what, $10,000? And that directly, contributes to how much money you get and don't get. See, it's nothing about racism. It's about the economic system. And I'm sorry, we can't do anything about that. But we know that the longer y'all stay in that area and can't get out of there to go to better schools, you're not going to be smart. You're not going to overcome all of these generations of being codependent on all of the social programs that we flooded the black community with. You're not going to be able to escape the violence from the neighborhoods that somehow, even though we control and we're the leaders of, we simply are able to just blame it and point to other people and say, look, they're responsible for all of your oppression over the neighborhoods that we run. That's what it is. Yeah, they're responsible for that. Isn't it crazy how the Democratic Party come out of the woodworks when a white man shoots a black man or a white cop shoots a black cop? But then what's odd is mum's the word when it comes down to all of the black men and women and kids being killed in democratically ran cities. You would think, since they just love black people, they would come out of the woodwork for that. I mean, statistically speaking, abortion of black babies and the killing of black on black people in their neighborhoods, you would think that would be of more interest. But that kind of sounds like if there is a such thing as systemic racism, that sounds like a system that they set up. Yeah, they set that up. So therefore, if they want to play that game like Elizabeth Warren, you want to go ahead and encourage all of this anger and virtue signal, because let's be honest, they know that tearing down statues and renaming bases and all of that stuff is not the real substance to help black people. It's to make you shut up and do their bidding, get mad, out of control, go tear down stuff in history that they're directly related to and had something to do with. Tear all that mess down. It ain't going to help you one bit, but it's going to distract you from looking at them and saying, wait a minute, if we going to go out and start tearing down anything in society that represents racism, tied to racism, then shouldn't we start with the Democratic Party? I mean, did everybody just overlook the fact that they never owned up to being the party of racism? They just make it seem like it's equally distributed amongst all white people in the past. Now, we don't want to take on all that blame ourselves. See, because then you might think that you need to start with tearing down the Democratic Party. We don't want you to think that. No. See, even though we birth all of these statues and these people you going after, all out of our party. Since we are the ones that's responsible for producing the Klan, and, people like the governor down in Virginia, blackface, and he's staying with the Ku Klux Klan member. For some reason, we ain't saying, let's tear this dude down. Let's go and get him out of the governor manager. That's not important. That's not. Let's go after these statues, right? Let's go after all this stuff. When we produce all of the statues, all of those leaders you're talking about, all of this hatred, violence, racism in our history of America, Democratic Party, why aren't we starting with them? You got to think like that. See, so instead of them taking personal accountability for contributing to all of the racism, soon as you see the Democratic Party, the name alone should incite anger. You should be going like, man, every time I see Democrats, I start thinking of slavery, racism, Jim Crow laws, lynching, the KKK, all of that stuff. And we need to start with tearing down them. Rename the Democratic Party. Go down your history and wipe out any of those Klan members that was a part of your party. Get rid of them. Tear the whole party apart. Incite anger and all of that stuff. Don't be directing them to go and tear stuff down. Nah, that y'all help build up. Don't do that. Start with yourself. See, you got to start thinking. Now, I know when people start talking about making these comparisons between Hitler and all of that, I'm very careful about that. But this is applicable. I always used to say to myself, how in the world did Hitler step up in front of groups of Nazis and say, listen, we ought to kill anyone that doesn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. 999, Hell Hitler. All of those people in that audience should have said, wait a minute. He doesn't have blonde hair and blue eyes. Why don't we start with him? Why didn't they do that? Because they were sheep. Because they were dumb. They were able to overlook the hypocrisy that this man didn't even have blonde hair and blue eyes, but yet gonna enrage them to go out and do his bidding. Went out, start killing everybody, and he himself didn't have the blonde hair and blue eyes. So all of these virtue signaling Democrats, they got Antifa and Black Lives Matter. And many of you minorities and black folks upset, talking about, yeah, we need to tear down all that stuff. And you overlooking the Democratic Party? Get out my face. I don't want to hear it. Until you start with them, the source of the problem, don't be talking about, let's go get Robert E. Lee statue and let's go get, nah, man, no. Let's go get the whole Democratic history in that party. Get rid of it. Restart it. Make another one. Tear it apart. Erase the history. All of their heroes. Get rid of them. From the rooter to the tutor. Now, I hated to have to kick it real to y'all just like that, but I did it anyway, and I do it again and again. See, I'm trying to drop something heavy on your mind, but those that, for whatever reason, are so nonsensical, so ignorant, so emotional, so sheepish, that they just adopt this superficial gesture of getting rid of racism by attacking statues and changing names of heroes that came out of the Democratic Party, and not able to see that you should start with them. You need to go somewhere and sit down and think about it. That's what you need to do. Coming at us with all that, man, let's go tear down stuff that's going to get rid of racism and stuff. Start with the party of racism. All of them. See, if they didn't have big mouths out there telling us stuff like what Elizabeth Warren saying, I wouldn't have to do this to them. But no, they're the first ones virtue signaling. And go ahead, y'all do our work, clean up our mess, erase our history, and not even start with them. Get out of my face. Now, you've been listening to Kevin and Kevin's. That's right. Might be tight, but it's right. Now, don't forget, find me every weekend, every week, Wednesday, 7:30, live in Kevin's Corner on Facebook, YouTube, and my radio blog talk show. Hit like, share, subscribe, and the notification button. Make sure you're still subscribed and your notifications are set to all. And also, let me think, check out Extreme Tees, my sponsor. If you like the products, click on the link below, put Kevin in the promo code, you get a 20% discount. Can't beat that with a baseball bat. And finally, if you want to donate to Kevin and Kevin's Corner, feel free. Links below. And follow me on Facebook, Instagram, and the Twitter. God bless you. And hey, man, yeah, let's do it. Pocahontas, you ready? Can we start? We can start with the no? Oh, okay. So y'all excluded from. Okay, see, yeah. See, that's how dumb people respond. Not me. I'm going, no, we start with you. Anyway, God bless.